All right, now we go to another mention of tithing in the scriptures, and it's Jacob now. We passed and done with Abraham. No more mention of Abraham giving a tithe, so I'm not going to mention it no more. Now we got Jacob. Jacob is another great hero of the Old Testament. And basically, Cliff Notes version is in Genesis 28:20 to 22, or you could read on a little bit more after that. But basically, Jacob is saying something like this. Hey, God, if you give me a house to sleep under, give me food to eat, and keep my feet at peace so I can come back to my God's house, all right, I'm going to set a pillar here as a representative of the house of God, okay? And all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give a tenth unto thee. So now we see something different. It's totally opposite of what we hear the modern day church system teach. They say, you give to God and he will bless you. This is how you got all these crazy guys on TV trying to sell you or tell you, plant a seed and this will happen. You see, so it's almost like, look at it as agricultural. You plant a seed and what happens? It grows, right? And becomes fruitful. This is what we're taught. You plant a seed, God will bless that seed and make it multiply. But Jacob didn't say nothing like that. He didn't say, God, I'm going to bless you so you can bless me. No, he said, if you give me, and you give me, and you give me, then will I give you a tenth. That's totally the opposite. That's like saying, God, if you make a tree appear, not a seed, a tree with the fruit, I'll give you some of that fruit. That's basically what Jacob said, to make it understandable and make it like a kid would understand. So instead of putting a seed, he said, God, if you do this and do that and do this, then will I give you a tenth. So see the difference? Modern day, plant the seed. Back in the days, the true tithe, God, plant a tree for me. You see? So it's totally different. It contradicts 99% of what is commonly taught. First, what we see here is Jacob acknowledged God for who he is. God, okay? If God will do this and God will do that, and if we see is it 1 Corinthians 4:7, it says, what have you got that you did not obtain? That's not from God. It's all from God. And Jacob acknowledged God. Okay? He acknowledged God. Let's not think that, once again, this was a ritualistic thing. Every week I'm going to give you a portion of what I got. It didn't operate that way. So then we say, how did Jacob tithe then? How did he give to God? You know, you couldn't go up there and say, here, God, take this. Okay? Because obviously the produce of the land, that's a lot. And you're not going to be able to carry that. Okay? Especially if you have a large flock and you have a large amount of land and agricultural products and seed and wine and oil. To take a tenth of all that, it's a lot. A lot of times you would need like a caravan. I can imagine in those days them through the desert on a caravan carrying their tithe. So how did he tithe? How was it done? If we read in Numbers, in Deuteronomy actually 12:6-7, it says, and the tither shall bring the burnt offerings and the sacrifices. Okay, and it says, and they shall eat before the Lord your God, and ye shall rejoice in all that ye have put into our hand, ye and your households. So basically, they're going to eat the tithe. They're not giving it to the temple, hoping the temple's doing something good or paying the priest. They're eating their tithe. You never hear a pastor saying that. That's akin to you having some land and saying, you know what, I'm going to take a tenth of it. I'm going to go eat it with family in a feast. That's basically what it was. It was a party. All right, it was a party. And then we see again, I got another verse over here. And we're looking at Deuteronomy 14:29. Okay. And it says, and even though there were no Levites in Jacob's day, Levite was the priest that came in after the law. Okay. Nevertheless, there were the strangers and the fatherless and the widow. Okay. Some verses say the orphans instead of saying fatherless. Okay. Which are within thy gates shall come, and they shall eat and be satisfied. and then the Lord, right, and the Lord will be blessed, basically, right? And the Lord will be blessed in all the work of thine hand which thou doest. Okay, that's how God acknowledged a tithe from Jacob, by partaking of a portion himself and his family in communion and thanksgiving to God, and by sharing all his fortune, all his tithe, what? With strangers, widows, orphans. That's how Jacob partook of the tithe. Never a weekly thing where, here you go, let the church do what they're going to do. Okay? It's never that. It's more like, for example, most churches have some kind of dinner function where all the members are just going to have a Easter picnic or something like that. Let's just say that. At the Easter picnic, all the members bring their portion, right? Most members are told, hey, you bring the rice, the ladies bring this, the men bring this, and so on and so forth. You have the shiesty ones that try to sneak away and don't bring nothing. But for the most part, everybody does their portion. Paper plates, everybody brings a portion. In those days, that's the way it was. They brought a tenth, okay, a tenth of what their agricultural product. And not everybody brought a tenth. Keep in mind, Jesus did not have to pay a tithe. He was a carpenter. What's he going to bring? Wood? Okay. The fishermen didn't have to pay a tithe. Fishing was not part of the agricultural tithing system. So keep that in mind. Paul did not have to pay a tithe. Why? He was a tent maker. What's he going to bring? Sewing string? Let's be real. Let's be real. Read the scriptures yourself. This mention of Jacob giving a tithe is another example of how the church does not do it the way it was meant to be done. Okay? And one thing I'll keep mentioning, just to keep you thinking, if you go to a synagogue right now of Jewish people, those who practice the Jewish religion to the letter of the law, those who wear the little cap and have the little sideburns, those who are at the Wailing Wall, and you ask one of them, hey, do you guys give a tithe? They'll say no. Why? Because there was no temple. At that time, when the tithe got established through the law, there had to be a temple. And there is no temple, so they do not give a tithe. How in the world did we incorporate something that was not meant for us and twisted it so good and put some sweet sugar on it and everyone eats it as if it's meant for us, Christians? We're not meant to give a tithe. It was never meant for us to give a tithe. So that's the other mention of Jacob giving his tithe. How did he give it? He ate it. Okay, stay tuned. I will mention some more verses, and hopefully you guys are getting into it and really considering what I'm saying and asking God to really open your heart when it comes to this topic. Okay, and once again, in my introduction, I had mentioned if you give a 10, 20, 30%, that's fine. But if you give in one moment, you think that you are blessed because you give. I've heard people say, you know what? Well, my marriage is blessed, but you're broke. Oh, it's not money. You always find an excuse. The truth is that you don't have to give a tenth, but you should. But don't ever think that it's because you're going to get blessed because you did it. Okay? And tithe, it can be something that can be used as a tool of pride. How? Because you start thinking, I give a tithe. They don't. You know? So it can be used as a tool of pride. And sometimes you have to examine your heart. You really do. It's scary, but it can become a downfall. So anyway, once again, stay tuned.